Welcome to Cinemaholics. You're listening to our review of Herself, which is an excerpt from episode 203 of Cinemaholics, hosted by Will Ashton, Abby Olchesi, and myself, John Negroni. To watch and listen to Cinemaholics live, follow us on YouTube. The link is in the description of this review. Enjoy the show. All right, let's talk about Herself. Herself premiered at Sundance last year. I had absolute pleasure and privilege. I almost said privilege to combine both words, but I guess that would be the case. This premiered at Sundance. I got to see this on the big screen, which was so wonderful. This is the latest film by Phyllida Lloyd, who of course did the first Mamma Mia, which is a classic of cinema, in my opinion. It's funny because I was just talking to my mom about how one of the last times she and I went to the movies together, we've been to the movies together like 2 times in the last like 12 years, mainly because I live in California and she doesn't. But the last time was we saw All the Money in the World together. And then before that, we saw Mamma Mia in 2008, opening day. And it was a blessed experience. But I went into Herself, this new film starring Claire Dunn, who actually did the screenplay with Malcolm Campbell. And Conley Hill is also in this film with Claire Dunn and Harriet Walter. And I gotta say, I haven't seen the film since. I definitely want to revisit it. It's on Amazon Prime Video right now. Abby, what is Herself all about?
Herself follows Claire Dunn's character, Sandra, who is the mother of 2 girls, Molly and Emma. And at the beginning of the film, she is escaping from her abusive husband, basically, Gary. And after their kind of harrowing escape, her and the girls escape from him, they are they're living out of hotels, waiting for housing to come up through the Irish government that can basically like allow them to properly start over. And in the meantime, Sandra's working like 2 or 3 jobs to kind of keep things going. One of the people that she works for is an older retired doctor named Peggy, who's played by Harriet Walter. She, I think at the beginning of the film, is recovering from a broken hip. And so she needs a lot of help around the house, which is what Sandra is giving her. And Sandra's mother used to be a cleaner for Peggy. So there's an established relationship there. In her kind of problems trying to find a house, because basically there are a lot of people on the housing list and a shortage of resources to give to them. She comes across the idea through some like online searching and some instructional videos that it is possible for her to build a house for like a total of 35,000 euros, which is roughly about the cost of what it would take the Irish government to house her and her girls. So she is trying to translate that into the ability to basically build a house so that she has a place to live with her girls. And Peggy ends up giving her a unused piece of land on her property to build that house on. She partners with Conleth Hill's character, Ado, to help her build the house. He's a builder and gets kind of various help from a lot of just really genuinely good people in her life. Like Sandra learns to kind of open up and how to ask for help. And she learns how to kind of build a community after she has felt so isolated and scared, basically through the process of building this house. And at the same time, she's also dealing with the existing relationship between her and Gary, who still has a legal right to see the kids about half the time. So she's dealing with the kind of the traumatic fallout of that event as well. And all of those kind of come to a dramatic climax around the 3rd act of the film. So that's kind of Herself in a nutshell.
All right. Yeah. Terrific movie. Definitely a standout for me at the festival. One that I remember in great detail, particularly the Conley Hill performance. But yeah, Will, so you had a chance to see Herself as well. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I didn't have the highest expectations going into this because I guess one way that you and I differ, John, is that I am not the biggest Phyllida Lloyd fan.
You're just one of the biggest. Yeah.
I am not, unfortunately. I didn't care for the first Mamma Mia movie, and I think Iron Lady isn't really my thing either. I don't remember it too well beyond.
Yeah, I don't like Iron Lady as well, so I'm with you there.
I mean, I'll say I like Iron Lady more than Mamma Mia, but I guess that'd be fighting words.
That's where we differ. Yeah.
But neither of the films were particularly my thing, and I think my concern with the film going in is that I found her direction style in both those films to be kind of fairly bombastic and lacking subtlety and nuance, and I was worried with a film like this that's so heavily from the perspective of a woman who is suffering, horrible abuse and trying to move from it, was that I didn't think she was going to necessarily have the sensitivity to pull it off. But one of the best surprises for me watching the film was that I think she did that quite well. Particularly thanks to the screenplay and the lead performance from Claire Dune. I think there's a lot of tenderness and a lot of nuance to that performance that I was afraid was going to be communicated in the film. But especially as we spend more time with this character and we get to see her perspective and the way she's mostly silently dealing with these very traumatic and horrific situations, I definitely was quite taken by this lead performance from our screenwriter. And yeah, I mean, I think the story itself plays out in a way that I found to be fairly expected, including an end that I guess I found it to be a little too predictable. There's a thing that happens I predicted fairly early on, and I was a little annoyed that I did predict that, because I was like, okay, that felt like a very scripted decision that in conjunction or against the more nuance of the direction. But overall, I did like the film, and I got more out of it than I anticipated. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, the film just kind of, when I watched it, it just kind of warmed me up. I was in definitely a different place when I was seeing it, and there was something about seeing like just the humanity of the people who come together to help this woman out, just purely, just to help her. And I was a little nervous about the film as it was going, because I was nervous it was going to be really melodramatic, and because there is like a lot of domestic abuse that is portrayed in this. And I think, yeah, there's something about the way the film handles how that affects characters without, really like bringing a harshness and a just like bleakness to the proceedings, which it's okay for some films to do that, but I just appreciated this film it just had a different take. It had a different experience for this woman and how she relates with her kids, how her kids are, dealing with the trauma of that situation. And, it's a simple movie. It's not, the deepest. It's not a film that I think is there to really provoke tons and tons of conversation. But I do think it just exists as this nice, sweet little gem that I really want to tell more people about. I did tell my mother about this one, and I told her it was from the Mamma Mia director. And funny enough, my mom already knew about the film. She had seen a trailer, and she's like, I really want to see it. And so I hope it finds its audience, and I hope that people give it a shot, because it does. Yeah, I think some people have kind of criticized it as like, okay, it's kind of like a Lifetime movie, which, first of all, that's okay. That shouldn't be a slight. But even so, I think it's definitely a cut above that. It's very, it's got a lot of theatrical quality to it. I'm sad that Abby and Willie didn't get to see this on the big screen, but I hope you can see why I enjoyed it as much as I did. So I'm very, very strong, solid B on Herself. I think it's really lovely. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, I'm kind of in similar territory. There's a lot that I liked about this. I think the relationships between the characters feel very real and kind and sweet. It's really nice to see people being emotionally generous to somebody who really, really needs it. And the kind of evolving relationship between Sandra and Peggy in the film, I think, is really very, very heartwarming and moving. There's a part where Peggy just kind of basically tells Sandra how proud she is of her in like around like close to the third act of the film. And it's like, I kind of teared up a little bit because I'm proud of Sandra too. She's done a lot. I think there are some parts of the movie that they veer a little bit closer to preachiness than I would like. They're a little bit kind of predictable in that sense, but those are fairly minor things, and the movie is not like that consistently and entirely. There's some kind of tragic stuff that rears its ugly head like very close to the end of the film that I don't know. I don't want to ruin anything. It did kind of leave me a little bit slack-jawed. And I think it leads to kind of a nice coda, but it did feel unnecessarily cruel as well. So there are some things about it that I don't think quite work. They feel a little bit rough, but I think that the ultimate goal is definitely achieved. I think it's a very sweet movie about found family and community and overcoming trauma with the help of people who are willing to help you do that if you just ask, basically. So I think I'm kind of in B territory for similar reasons.
Excellent. Yeah, very strong message for this movie. What about you, Will? Where do you land for this one?
I'm not too far behind you two. Like I said, I I do agree with Abby that there are maybe a couple moments where the qualities of Lord's past two films kind of start to come out, and I wasn't particularly a big fan like the kind of more theatrical moments, but I do think comparatively to like say Iron Lady, like I think that moment of catharsis where like she finally gets to like yell out her emotions was a lot more well earned and a lot more impacting here than I think I would have anticipated going in. So yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate the film a lot. Like you said, it's a fairly simple film, so I don't know if this is one I'm going to be reflecting back on that much in the months and years ago, but I do think what it does fairly well, and I think as a character piece and a showcase for our lead actress and screenwriter, I think it's a good film in that regard. So yeah, I'd give it a high B minus.
Well, Herself is now available to watch on Amazon Prime Video. It's the shortest film I think we've talked about in the featured reviews this week. It's only 97 minutes long. So yeah, pretty quick watch if it sounds interesting to you. It sounds like you'll at least, like it based on our conversation. I think it's worth seeing for sure. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice. Mine is Overcast. Or find us on YouTube, where you can stream our weekly episodes live for even more banter and weird film takes. See you all next time.